recruitment about keeping the homeland safe. Thanks again for your time, General. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Before the break, I was asking you about recruitment and why you check for teeth.
Jeff, before we even get to the teeth, and if teeth are the last line of defense, so be it.
Okay.
But before you get to the teeth, there's a process that you need to go through. One, there's a requirement, because for you to be able to be, the teeth to be reviewed, you need to go through a process. One, you need to be 18 years of age, up to 26. If you are coming in as a general service officer cadet or a general service recruit, you must meet that age requirement. Number two, you have to be give the correct academic credentials and the KRA certificate. After that, will be subjected to a process, a bit of
okay, well, hold on, sorry, hold that thought. If you're 18, you have to get a KRA pin at 18?
Well, I think the recruiting officer has the discretion. If you are not, you have not attained the age, or you have not done something that would require you to have a KRA pin, I think that is at the discretion. But it's preferable that you have one. It's not difficult to get it. You just apply and you get. Right, yeah.
Qualifications, academic, depends, or for general recruits would be?
No, it depends. Now, if you're joining as a cadet, you need to have B+ of average grade, and in mathematics, you need to have a C+ and above. That also goes to English and one science subject. And then for a general service recruit, you need to have a D if you're just a general service recruit. And if you're a tradesperson, an artisan, you need, if you're coming in with a diploma to become a technician, you need to have a C and above, okay, plus the line of training that you have had. And if you're coming as a general artisan, then you need a D+ and above. That is it. And then there's also another category of specialist officers. The specialist officers compose of doctors and the clergy. Their requirements are different. If you're coming in as a specialist, then that age is extended to 39 if you are from the clergy.
That's the maximum.
But there's also another two areas that I would like to clarify. One, you can join as a fresher from school, okay, as a cadet officer, yes. So you train for 3 years. And these 3 years, you have two programs in one. One is the military training and academics, okay? Then at the end of that, you'll graduate with a Bachelor of Science in Defense and Security Studies. But if you're joining in as a degree holder, then you'll train for 3 years. And you are allowed now to join with an age between 18 and 30, assuming you are to school very early.
If you have a degree, what rank do you enter as?
You just enter as a cadet, and at the commissioning, you are commissioned as a second lieutenant. Yes, so there's a structure through which you go. Yes.
I see.
Yes.
Okay, and then you said before we get to the teeth.
Yes.
We're not there yet.
Right.
This running thing.
Yes.
How many kilometers and what are you looking for?
On average, 5. When the reason why we do that is because you need to be physically fit and medically fit. And some of the challenges, particularly those that are underlying, would be detected better if you're subjected to a physical exercise. So that's very, very important. And some people don't even know that they have underlying conditions until they go through that run. So one thing, as you go to the recruitment center, you need to, first of all, if you have a pre-existing condition that you know, just keep off, because that will lead to, disaster.
And it will be detected?
It will be detected, definitely. But if you don't know, you can also go to a medical doctor. But I must also warn that even if you went to a medical doctor for screening, that is not adequate, because our screening is much, much more thorough than would be provided by an ordinary, clinician or a normal screening. Right.
We're at the teeth now.
Now, the teeth. Now, we realize that there are areas in this country where you have water that has fluoride content is very high. And therefore, you'll have people who have low to medium teeth discoloration, and there are those that are severe. From low to medium, I think that can be looked at, okay? So that the medic will be able to say whether or not you are predisposed to any, injury after that. But if you have severe discoloration, it's an indication that you probably have a problem with the bone structure. and you are prone to accidents. There are dental accidents that you'll be prone to. And if you get into a dental, accident, that would force us to put you in hospital instead of training. So it's a disadvantage to you. And our people are very, very clear on this. They will tell you. In fact, they do not just chase you away from the field. They will tell you, we are not recruiting you because of reason A, B, C, D. Right, yeah. And so that you can also go to hospital and get checked.
Right.
Right.
Someone texted me and said, ask the general, why don't you recruit short people?
Short people are great people, but then there's a criteria that is set. And it's not only to the Kenya Defence Force, it is everywhere. Now, if you are shorter than, and the height, by the way, let me clarify again, for you as a woman to join, you have to be 5 feet and above, okay? If you're a man, you need to be 5 feet 3 inches. Okay?
5'3" minimum.
Exactly, 5'3" minimum. Now, the reason, if you come in shorter than 5 feet, there is a possibility that you'll not attain the required weight, okay? You'll not be able to attain that. And if you have, more weight than you ought to have, then through training, definitely that you will shrink. Now the danger is here. The weapons that we use, the personal weapons that we have, are about over 4 feet. So you can imagine you standing on parade or going to fight, and the weapon is,
it's taller than
you. That's a big challenge. And also, Jeff, if you are less than 50 kilograms, during training as you begin, you'll be required to carry weights between 18 and 25 kilos, okay? So that will be half your weight or almost more than 3/4 of your weight. Are you able to do that? Then on graduation, as you go towards the end of the training, you'll be required to carry even heavier loads that can be from 25 up to 45. You cannot be able to carry your own weight. It is not possible. And that is the reason why we do that. Yes, yes.
That's a lot of work.
A lot of work.
Huh?
A lot of work.
Someone was asking,
yes.
Does character count in recruitment?
It does. In the sense that if you're not a person of character, then if you have had a crime, if you have criminal record, then that is a no-go. You can come in and don't disclose that you've had a criminal record, but there is verification, there is scrutiny that happens even after you are recruited, and you'll be caught and definitely will be removed, because character is one thing that the defense forces or a security person cannot afford not to have. Right.
Still on recruitment, tattoos.
Tattoos. Yeah, tattoos have been an issue, and this is a question that people keep on asking. But I would relate it more to policy. This recruitment policy says that you are not supposed to join with a tattoo. And of course, I think that when that policy was promulgated is because of, historical issues, what happens, in that space. But let's leave it at policy. As of now, you're not going to be recruited if you are wearing a tattoo.
Just like that?
Just like
You're
that.
disqualified for having a tattoo?
A tattoo.
What about a birthmark? A
birthmark, again, Jeff, could be an indicator of a weakness in the skin structure, okay? And remember, I talked about the weight that you're supposed to carry. On your back, maybe on your shoulders, if you have certain birthmarks and they get into contact with the weight, that then would cause an injury. Again, that would put you off training.
So you're telling me the people you recruit every year are perfect human beings?
They're not perfect. I don't think there's any room for perfection. But you remember, this is a very competitive process, okay? You come with a condition. If there's another person who doesn't have that condition, then they stand a better chance because of the competition aspect of it. And this country has a lot of young men and women that actually fit the qualification, the criteria that is set.
Yeah.
But we're also human. And if something that you can be helped with, that's okay. But mostly, you will not be able to do that. Again, depending on the severity.
Yeah.
Right.
If they're hiding the tattoo somewhere where you generals who can't see it, I mean, if you can't detect it, how will you know?
Jeff, you cannot fail to detect it. Because at some point, you'd have to be in a private space with a physician, and he's going to look at the entire system, outside and inside.
Yes.
So really, I don't think you will not get away with it, Jeff. It's not possible.
Yeah.
Right.
General, there are a lot of people, or some people, not a lot, some people who show up with fake papers.
Yes.
What do you do about that? How do you sift through that?
Jeff, one of the things is that as you come to the recruitment center, you need to come with your original documents. So we have people within the recruitment teams that do very basic, scrutiny, verification of the certificates. If you get through that and the papers are fake, we'll bring you on board. But then after that, there's a more thorough process, the way we involve the Kenya National Examinations Council, the DCI, and NIS. They'll be able to look at that. And again, if you're caught, that's another problem because you'll go to court. But there are also people who can also be able to cheat their way through even NEC, okay?
Yeah.
But what happens is that even after this, a perpetual, verification process. Remember, we go through a lot of trainings that require you to apply your mind. So should we, or the system, at any time of your service, think that your output does not match the papers that you presented, then of course that presents a question that can be interrogated further. I can give a personal example.
Go on.
I went to a cadet school when I did with an officer who managed to cheat their way through. They even commissioned a second lieutenant. But months into the service, it was realized that their output did not match the papers that they presented. And on further scrutiny, it was realized that he had presented his brother's papers. The man ended up in jail for 4 months.
Wow.
You can imagine the amount of damage, the amount of investment the system has made in this person, and even his future. Because if you go to jail, then it means then
your dishonorable discharge.
Exactly, you're discharged completely, or not even discharged, dismissed.
Dismissed.
Yeah.
And getting a job after that is.
Because we also give you a report. Yes. Yeah.
General, walk us through the various branches of the military, right? The Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. Does recruitment happen for all three at the same time?
It does, Jeff. It just does, Jeff. And there are slots allocated for each one of these services because the Army is bigger and it gets, because of the population and the mission, they get more slots. But it happens at the same time. But each one of them has their set criteria. The pilots, the seamen, they go through aptitude tests depending on what you're coming to do, and that is how it happens. Each one of them.
Who determines who goes where? How do you say, okay, this lot are going to the Army, this lot Navy, this lot Air Force?
There's a choice also. As you come in, you'll be asked whether do you want to join the Kenya Army, the Kenya Air Force, or the Kenya Navy, or the recruiting officers. Depending on your aptitude, they can also ask you, you have indicated your interest in joining the Army. Might also be if there's no vacancy in the Army, or your grades are better off in the other service, they will ask you and advise you. So it's up to you to make that choice. But very importantly, the numbers are determined by the establishment and the quotas that are given to each of the centers that are involved in the recruitment. And you have 374 of them covering the entire country. Yes.
Tell me something, General. There's a young man, a young woman watching you right now.
Yes.
And they want to be a fighter pilot.
Yes.
They want to fly that F5.
Yes.
Or whatever it is you're going to get next,
right.
Next generation plane.
Yes.
What do you tell them? What do they need?
They need to have the best aptitude because they'll be taken through a process. And normally they will go for the highest grades. And if you have a B and above, and you have done very well in mathematics, you have done very well in sciences, you stand a very good chance. But you'll also be subject to aptitude tests to really confirm that you're fit for the job. And also, you also be taken through a medical process, a very thorough medical process to certify that you're fit to do that.
What about age? Still between 18 and 20?
And 26. But I think one of the things I see the pilots doing, the Air Force doing, is that, for you to be able to fly these jet fighters, I think it will be a bit adventurous. So perhaps you have more advantage the younger you are.
What is your specialty, General?
My specialty, I commissioned as a second lieutenant and was assigned to the Kenya Army Artillery. Kenya Army Artillery is one of the divisions of the Kenya Army. And Kenya Army has three, or the Army generally has three main divisions: the combat support, and service support. I belong to the combat support set that has the long-range guns. It has, combat engineering, aviation, and other specialties there.
Yeah.
So I belong to the Kenya Army Artillery.
And what service have you done? What kind of call of duty have you had?
Oh, Jeff, I've done everything that an officer in the Kenya Armed Forces has got to do, right from a troop commander, a battery commander. I've been a commanding officer. I've been a brigade commander. I have been a staff officer at various levels, at brigade level, at joint task force level, at Army headquarters level, and defense headquarters. But mostly in operations. That's what I've done. But beyond that, I'm also a trainer. I worked at the Armed Forces Training College, currently the Kenya Military Academy. And my last position, before I was appointed as the Vice Chief of the Defense Forces, I was the Vice Chancellor of the National Defense University Kenya. I was the founding Vice Chancellor.
Of the National Defense, the new one?
Yes,
the one that was commissioned?
Exactly, exactly, yes, yeah.
And from Lieutenant General, what's the next step?
General.
Full General?
Yes, yes.
Walk us through, someone coming into the Army, right?
Yes.
What level, what rank do they come in as?
Yes.
And how do you work your way?
Oh, Jeff, if you're a commissioned officer, you begin with a second lieutenant at the level of second.
If you're commissioned.
If you're commissioned. Yes. Then you go to lieutenant. That's 1 star is the second lieutenant. 2 stars is lieutenant. 3 stars is captain. If you have this, you're a major, okay? Then the next rank is lieutenant colonel, okay? Then from there you go to colonel. From colonel you go to brigadier, brigadier to major general, then lieutenant general, and finally general. But in other circumstances, you have field marshals. In Kenya, I think that is reserved for the commander-in-chief. Right. In Ethiopia, you have the chief of the defense forces is a field marshal. Right, yeah. Right, okay. Yeah.
And how long did it take you to get from second lieutenant to lieutenant general?
Jeff, you have had the 10 ranks from second lieutenant. Yeah. It's a journey.
It's a journey.
It took me close to 40 years to arrive here.
Wow.
So it is quite a journey.
Yeah.
You don't come and become a general the next day. But if you're from the other side, if you're a non-commissioned member, a service member, you begin with private. After college, you become a private. Then from private, you go to lance corporal to corporal, where you have 2 chevrons, sergeant 3, a senior sergeant you have 3 and a dot. Then from there you become a warrant officer class 2. Then finally you become a warrant officer class 1. That is the highest rank in the service members category.
Which is non-commissioned.
Yes, non-commissioned. Yeah. But there are also occasions when you can get commissioned from a service member to become a special duty officer, right? If you have the credentials, you have the qualifications, which that can allow you to cross over to their side, it happens.
And special duties meaning doctors or no?
Not really, Jeff. Normally they would be in the categories of logistics, accountants.
Okay.
Mostly those are the categories. Or there are also certain medical categories where there's the management aspect of it, where you can move from service member to the officer corps. Yeah. But doctors join as doctors, right?
General, I'm sure you've worked with other militaries from across the continent.
Yes.
And without blowing your own trumpet, how would you rank our military?
Well, I do not want to blow our trumpet or my trumpet, but I think from the interactions that we have, and you see we have many of them. In fact, we go to schools all over the world. Personally, I've been to Asia, I've trained in Europe and in the US. And from the feedback that we get is that we rank very highly in terms of professionalism and discipline. And I think the minister told you that he's just coming from Congo. And what he was told by stakeholders who are not part of us is that they are very happy working with our soldiers. So really, I think we stand somewhere in terms of professionalism. Right.
In terms of equipment, do we have the right equipment? Do we have what it takes?
We do have.
Because we're mostly a peaceful nation. You know, we're not always constantly at war, even though we do peacekeeping. But do we have what it takes?
We do have, and Jeff, it does not matter whether you're an island of peace or not, because today you're an island of peace, and tomorrow it's a different thing. So what happens is that the equipping of the Kenya Defence Forces and any other military is based on a very, very deep analysis, normally called the strategic defence and security, analysis, and in which you're able to look at the internal environment, you look at the regional environment, look at the global environment. What does it portend for your national security? Because the military is about, caring for that day. You're an insurance for that rainy day.
Right.
So in terms of equipment, it is informed by a very, very deeply rooted analysis. Yes.
And in terms of gender,
yes,
how is the role? I mean, what's the gender policy with the military?
We are one of the few militaries that have a gender policy. But I want us also to go back to General Tonje days, who, in his own wisdom, decided that we did not need to have a separate unit for women. We were able to integrate women into a mainstream service from what was called the Women's Service Corps in 2000. And by, at that time, the population of women was less than 4% at that point. Then, based on the lessons that we learned along the way, in 2017, the Ministry of Defense promulgated a gender policy, both to guide the civilian component and the military component. At that time, when this gender policy was promulgated, we were at 11% in 2017. And by now, as we speak, we are now at 17%. So you can see quite a lot of transformation and the change in the number of women that we have within the service. But very importantly, the roles women play in the KDF, in our leadership. I think all of us are very familiar with Major General Fatma Ahmed, who is the immediate former, commandant of the Kenya Military Academy in Lanet. And now she's at the National Defense College as a senior director in staff. And before then, she was an assistant to the Chief of the Defense Forces, responsible for personnel and logistics. And also in Defense Headquarters, we have very key departments being led by women. A legal officer, the Chief of the Strategic Communication Department, and in IPSTC, the director there, the CEO is a lady, Brigadier Joyce TNA. And in that particular institution, because I was there this morning, the senior leadership positions, they're actually 50-50. 50 for men, not by law, but because of the accomplishments, the women actually are placed correctly. And they have a chance. So
we've come a long way.
We've come a long way, and we're still going further. Yeah. We expect the numbers to keep on improving as we go.
Coming back to recruitment, General, because there's a lot of people asking lots of questions. Yes. What happens when people faint during this 5-kilometer run?
When people faint during the 5-kilometer run, we have ambulances driving along with the teams. And also there are medical personnel that are positioned strategically so that when an incident happens, that person is taken care of almost immediately. But there are also situations, very unfortunate, that sometimes, because of what I said initially, that you could have an underlying condition that you didn't know, and somebody, of course, would end up maybe dead, but we do not wish for that. So, yeah, we have medical personnel actually deployed or along the route, and vehicles, ambulances, moving up and down just in case an incident happens.
Yeah. If someone faints, are they disqualified automatically?
They'll be treated first. And of course, their condition, if because it happens, it's normal for one to faint. Yeah. If the medical personnel certifies themselves that it is not it's not a big deal, and you're still able to compete with the rest, why not? Maybe
they just had a heavy night.
You see. But you're advised to prepare before you go to recruitment. It's very important. It is not a joke. Yeah, sleep early. Yeah. Prepare yourself. Yeah. Psychologically, physically, and so that you are fit.
Yeah. Someone else is asking, why don't you recruit people who stammer? I'm getting all kinds of questions here.
Again, this is very competitive.
Yes.
And, people who stammer, they don't do it out of one volition. But again, it's competitive. Yeah. And again, also, Jeff, the kind of, this is a career. It's not a job like any other. It requires very good communication, if that were possible. Okay. If that is not manageable, if the stammering is such that it cannot be managed, then that means, and I have to, instruct you to do something, then I think you ought to be a good communicator with all due respect.
Absolutely.
Right, yeah.
Good answer, General.
Right,
good answer.
Yeah.
So many answers, so many questions, rather, and thank you so much for being so patient and answering them. We have a lot more. We'll take a break, come back, we'll go to the magic wall, because I know there's lots of questions for you, General.
We'll do it.
We're speaking to Lieutenant General Jonah Mwangi. He's the Vice Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces. Knows his stuff. He's been there nearly 4 decades. How about that? And still having a good time. There's one more rank to go to become general. Hopefully that'll happen soon. In the meantime, keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff. What are your questions, comments? At Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag JKLIVE. Takes a break. We'll be back in a moment.
Thank you.